and we'll put that up on YouTube so people who weren't able to attend live can access that later. We have some upcoming sessions. Next week, I'll be talking about the SET framework, looking at the student environment tasks and tools. Then April 14th, Stacia Spees from Moose Lake will be talking about boom cards. She did a training a month or so ago, and then she'll be doing a follow-up on that. The following week, we have break, and then I'll be talking about Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, on April 28th. All right, why are we doing office hours? We do office hours to share resources across the region. We have a lot of people doing great things around the region, and we want to make sure we're sharing those things out. We started when we were very early in the stages of distance learning, and part of it was to support each other as we were moving through that transition, but again, just to share resources across the region. Often when we're considering assistive technology, we think about the SET framework, and that's looking at the student, the environments, the tasks, and the tools. We usually think of AT being within that tool category, but we also know that we can make adjustments to the environments and the tasks also to provide the best environment for the student. We always look through a lens of equity to make sure it is that each individual student is getting exactly what it is that they need. We'll have some sharing by our guest today. Joe Schingen is back with us today, and we'll make sure we have time for question and answers. Then at the end, if we've got time, we'll do some little reminders and a wrap up, but those are also included in the slides too. All right, so I'm going to stop screen sharing here, and now I will turn it over to Joe Schingen, who is the Distance Learning Coordinator for ISD 709. Thanks so much, Joe, for joining us again. Welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me. I always love working with this group. You guys do such good work that helps those who need some extra support and are oftentimes in the Gen Ed world not really taken care of well enough. And so your specialties and your extra knowledge is a really big deal. So thanks for having me. I love being here. So I am not the host of this meeting, and so I can't actually show you a bunch of features through screen share, but if you are willing, well, Julie, you might have to maybe show just for recording's sake, but I would like to invite those of you in this meeting to open up another Meet. I don't know if you knew that, but you can actually have more than one Google Meet open. And if you open your own, you'll be able to see and click around while you're listening to me speak. And so if you're willing to have an interactive experience, I would invite you to do that. Otherwise, though, Julie, if you don't mind, maybe sharing your entire screen.
You bet.
And then we'll kind of go through the steps together, if you like. Couple of things to show. So the way, though, I want to actually teach you a new way to start a new Meet. And so if you go, and Julie, you don't have to do this because you don't want to show your inbox necessarily, but if you go into your Gmail, you will see on the left-hand side, you will see new Google Meet, and you'll see your scheduled Google Meets as two new features on the left-hand side in your Gmail. And so if you click on that, it would invite you to open up a new Google Meet, or it would list the meets that you already have scheduled. And so that is a really quick way to just start a new Meet. And once you're in, there are a handful of new tools that are really great. And I think the first one that I think we should start on is Q&A as a way for folks in this session to ask questions. And so, Julie, if you could click towards the top right next to the time. Yep, right there in activities. And again, you can always jump back over to what we're doing here if you're in your own Meet now. But on the activities, those are the three shapes you have breakout rooms, polls, and Q&A. People know about breakout rooms and polls, and we can talk a little bit more about that. But Q&A is something that a lot of people don't really use. And so if you click on that, Julie, that would be great. And so you would turn on Q&A, and you'll notice in the chat, you are invited to ask a question if you want. Now, as host, Julie can allow questions to come in or turn it off, but right now it's on. And so she can ask a question, or the rest of us could ask a question as well. And so I'm going to actually do that really quickly as a member in this meet. All right, and so I posed a question, and this is basically a way for participants to ask a question to the presenter. Instead of it being in the chat, it can actually be here. And from here, when the time comes, a presenter can answer the question and then check it off as done. Other participants can upvote that question if they're like, yeah, I was wondering that as well. And if you want, you can hide it with that feature, or you can toss it when you're feeling ready. So you can go ahead and delete it if you like. Those will stay and be part of that transcript, I guess you would say, from throughout the meeting. All right, so that's Q&A, and students and participants can jump in and ask their questions that way, and that's kind of a nice feature. Polls and breakout rooms are pretty much unchanged, except let's go into breakout rooms for just a second, and then set up breakout rooms. So here, you can set up as many rooms as you like. It typically will calculate the amount of rooms to allow you to have 3 to 4 people per room. And so that tends to automatically create those rooms. And you can rename breakout room 1 to whatever you want. You can rename any of those breakout rooms. And one newer feature within breakout rooms is the timer. And so you can actually click on the timer and set an amount of time that you want the breakout session to go for. So that way teachers don't have to worry about losing track of time, but also that timer will exist in the breakout rooms so people have an idea of how much time they have to complete that task. That is a nice newer feature. Now, if you're going in and out of breakout rooms, the shuffle is an option. So if you wanted to click shuffle, it would move people around into different groups. So you're not necessarily in the same groups for the entire session. All right, we can get out of breakout rooms. Thanks so much, Julie. I bet you didn't know you were going to be on today. All right, so if you click on the participants list, that would be the people, yep, right there. This is where we have some new features. New meaning within the last month and a half. So you now have the ability to mute all. And this was not a thing. So while we were in our distance learning and while we were doing most of our work remotely this year, we didn't have the option, and it would have been nice to have that option. But now we can mute all as needed. And we can add people on the fly. And we have some unique host controls. And so let's click on the host controls. So from here, you can let anyone share their screen or not. And you can let anyone participate in the chat feature or not. And these two features are pretty nice. So you can open it up and then close it depending on how you want to run your session. It's not necessarily set for the entire Google Meet. You can turn it on and off at times, and so you have a lot more control in that way. And then also, if you click on the chat, you can also turn chat on and off there as well. All right. So other new features, down in the bottom right corner, you have the vertical ellipses, the 3 dots. Now this is a very cool thing. It used to be that with Jamboard or the whiteboard, you would have to present, and then you could present a Jamboard. But now when you click on the whiteboard / open a jam, and you start a new whiteboard or Jamboard, a very cool thing happens. Yep. It asks to create a new Jamboard and share it with everybody. And so it doesn't automatically present, but it doesn't have to, because you'll notice in the chat box, a link will get every participant there. By clicking on the link, you would be able to access this same Jamboard, can edit. And so if anyone wanted to click on that, we could all be in the Jamboard together. Now, this is something that you can create. And if you haven't used Jamboard, it's basically a whiteboard. And we could do a whole nother session on Jamboard, and maybe we should at some point. But you have the ability to write. That's okay. You have the ability to write and add text and add images and upload PDFs and create new slides and duplicate. A lot of teachers will create a Jamboard that has a slide for every student or every group. And then instead of creating a new Jamboard, they would pick one from their drive. And that was one of the 2 options when you go to create a whiteboard. And so you could already have it made, like a template made for students, so they could just get to it and complete the activities in that way. Choose from drive, right? So you could have one made in advance or not. And so anyways, there are plenty of tutorials on Jamboard, and it's a pretty cool feature for sure. All right, so if we click again, oh, go ahead, Julie.
We actually had Sherry Walker has done 2 sessions on Jamboards. So
oh, awesome. So you guys know.
On our YouTube channel too. I don't know if you guys were able to attend them, but they're all logged and ready to watch if you wanted to take a peek at those too.
Love it. That's awesome. So also, this is only a feature for the host, but down next to, along the bottom where it has the name of the meet, there is a blue shield. If you click on the blue shield, this is along the bottom bar, it gives you another kind of big feature, and it's called Quick Access. Now, if Quick Access is turned on, like Julie has it turned on, then anyone, as soon as you click in, you're in. But if you have Quick Access off, then it creates something like a waiting room. And so what that means is if someone were to click into this meet now, it would say, please wait for the host to let you in. And so if you're having conferences, you can have one link for conferences, and you can simply have your conference, and the next people who are in would click in, and they could just be kind of in a waiting room. And once you wrap it up with one conference, then you would let the next group in, and you can have some privacy instead of random people just coming into your conferences. And so that is a nice feature, because you don't necessarily want to have to create a separate Google Meet for every conference. If you had, a half a dozen of them on a given day, you can just have one link and share it with everybody. and turn off quick access. All right, going back down to the vertical ellipses in the far right corner. Let's just take another quick look at this list. So you can create your Jamboard, you can record, you can change your layout. So that means that if you're in the tile feature, and this isn't necessarily going to be reflected with Julie because she's sharing her screen, but if you're in the tiled feature, you can see down below that you can actually control how many people you can see in one view all the way up to 49. And so what it will do is it will default typically at 16. And so you would have to go into tile and manually expand it to up to 49 as needed. And it will show you that many people at one time, which is kind of a nice thing. And then you can look at the pictures and kind of see how it works with the others. When you are recording, it automatically spotlights the host or the one who is presenting. All right. So let's go back again to the vertical ellipses. Thank you. And the change background is a new feature as well. It used to be that you could blur, and so these first two options is a minor blur, and it takes a second to kick in, and you'll see Julie's background just kind of fuzz just a bit. And a stronger blur will take it away to the point where you can't necessarily discern what's going on back there, which is kind of nice because sometimes our background isn't the best. The newer features, though, is that you have these kind of AI backgrounds, and you can now, it doesn't matter what your actual background is, you can create this AI background. And so now Julie is in the tropics, scuba diving, it's the 4th of July, etc. But there, if you scroll up, Julie, there is a plus button. And this plus button would actually allow you to take an image that you have downloaded on your computer and have a customized background. And so sometimes for me, I'll be somewhere in Duluth and have those backgrounds. And so that's a new feature where you can actually customize your own background. Maybe you have your own school logo or something that you want to have that looks more professional, etc. All right, one more time, Julie, if you want to jump into the vertical ellipses. One thing to remember really quickly is that when you do have a background, it might slow down or lag the speed of your computer and the way that it's working. And so turning off the background would allow it to move more smoothly. So if you're seeing that things are lagging or getting a little bit discombobulated, I guess you could say, maybe turn off your background. All right, so you know about captions, I think. It's just important, I think, to say again that having captions in a Google Meet are not recorded, and that is an unfortunate thing. But captions can translate, which is a nice feature. So you can actually have your captions translate to another language. And so one thing that you can do is coach your students on how to do that. Captions are not just for the deaf and hard of hearing, as we know, but it also can be for our EL students who might prefer to hear what you're saying and be able to see what you're saying in their first language. And so that is something to consider. There have been a couple of hacks on getting captions going in your recording. One is to have them on your slides in present mode. And then Google Slides in present mode has its own live captioning, and that does get captured in the recording. You guys have probably completely unpacked every possible way to get captions rocking in recordings. Let's talk about recordings just for a second. So recordings happen, and then about 15 minutes later, the host will get that recording emailed to them, and it also will be in their drive, and it will also show up in the calendar event. And so if you were invited to this meeting, in about a half an hour, you could go back into that calendar invite, and the recording will be there, along with any transcript. And the host will also have an attendance roster for all who are here. So that's nice for teachers as well. There's more, but I think we can stop there. And I would like to hear some of your questions. And so if you'd like to come back to us and maybe talk about what works, what doesn't, what strategies you've been using with Google Meets, and a couple of I wish this were possible. Oftentimes, hearing some of those, we can find ways to help get you there.
So feel free to unmute yourselves, type something in the chat window. I can read it out, whatever you're most comfortable with. Either ways that you've already used the new features or things you're wondering about. If you're waiting to get your courage up, I'll jump in with one thing that I've noticed that's a change is the end meeting for all feature now that happens when you go to leave a meeting. I know many teachers appreciate that because then students can't stay in the meeting. But I also have kicked everyone else out of a meeting when I've gone to leave a meeting. So just those new features you kind of got to keep an eye on when they pop up. So if you're the host of a meeting, that's a new feature too.
Yeah, I'm extra excited for some reason about the Jamboard link going right to the chat, because a month ago you would have to present, open a Jamboard, and then like hit share, get the link, put it in the chat, and it was just a lot of time spent doing that, which is a frustration. And Google Meet is promising to have the ability to build some things in advance. For example, before you're actually live in a Google Meet, you can create that meet. You can create all of your poll questions. You can name all of your breakouts. You can have your Jamboard up and loaded, so that when you get into your meet, you're kind of ready to rock and roll. And so I would call that Google Meet 2.0 for us. I think that they're working hard to hear what users are wanting and needing, and adding features all the time. Some security features, lots of new user features. Any other thoughts or questions about Google Meets? Let me show you one cool thing that doesn't have to do with Google Meets. Is that okay? So if you can just, I'll just walk you through this if you just listen. So if you go into your Gmail or Drive or anywhere that you can click on the waffle. So the waffle are those 9 squares that kind of look like a waffle in any kind of Google Suite product. If you click on that waffle, you'll have all those options of Gmail, Calendar, Jamboard is one. You might not know this, but you can actually move those around. And so if there are some that you use often, you can grab it and slide it up to where you want it to go. Um, that wasn't always a thing, but it is now. Some things are locked in, like if your district or whatever is whoever is administrating your Google Suite account, if they've created some, they'll be stuck at the bottom, unfortunately. But most of these features, if you're using them more than others, move them up to the top. It'll expedite your process. And I don't know about you, but scrolling and clicking has a premium. And if you can minimize, it really adds up to a lot of time saved over time. So, yeah, a little tidbit.
That was a brilliant little bonus that I am probably way more excited than I should be about, but that is really exciting. All right. Do people have any more questions or comments here while we've got Joe here to answer them for us? And if not, thank you so much to Joe for showing up and showing us all these great new features in Google Meet. I feel like they're adding things all the time, and sometimes it's nice to just have someone there to walk you through them. So, really appreciate that. And I appreciate all the rest of you showing up too. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.